So, we laid the foundation. This wasn't just a set of disparate actions, but a calculated sequence, akin to constructing a skyscraper where every beam and load-bearing column matters. We ruthlessly eliminated high-interest debts, cutting off the financial bleeding that was imperceptibly but inexorably draining our resources day after day. Remember, no asset can grow faster than your capital shrinks under the relentless pressure of a 24% APY on a credit card. This scorched earth tactic didn't just clear the balance sheet, it restored control. It freed our psyche from constant background stress, reduced cognitive noise, and created the mental bandwidth necessary for long-term strategic thinking. Only after stabilizing the ground beneath us could we responsibly begin to build upward. Then, we carefully built our money shield, a safety cushion covering 3 to 6 months of basic expenses, deliberately parked in a high-yield savings account where liquidity, not growth, was the priority. This seemingly boring sum is your insurance policy against panic decisions and forced asset sales at the very bottom of the market cycle. With that buffer in place, we launched the wealth accumulation mechanism by fully automating investments into broad market index funds. This step was a clear admission that, during the accumulation phase, consistency and discipline reliably outperform attempts to outsmart the market. Finally, we protected this growing capital from erosion by taxes, using efficient vehicles like 401s, Ks, and Roth IRAs, or their equivalents in your country, to minimize long-term tax drag. And, critically, we continued investing in our most important asset, ourselves, systematically increasing the value of each hour we sell in the labor market. But what happens when these mechanisms actually kick in? What if, thanks to this strategy, you are already seeing your first significant 6 figures reflected in your accounts? This is the precise moment when many people make a fatal mistake. They stop evolving. They believe they have finally solved the money problem and can now simply coast. It's a trap disguised as comfort. The principles that carried you to your first $100,000 are excellent for stability and preservation, but they are insufficient on their own for true wealth expansion. To move from 6 figures to millions, those same principles must be deliberately adjusted, scaled, and, in some cases, challenged. Because playing not to lose is fundamentally different from playing to win. The next logical step is lever scaling. When a portfolio grows from starter capital into something truly significant, the underlying risk mathematics change dramatically. Early on, your primary lever was the focused application of effort toward increasing active income. Time and energy were the scarce resources. Now, the capital itself becomes the dominant lever. Losing 50% of $1,000 is an unpleasant but manageable lesson worth $500, something that can be earned back in a single week of focused work. Losing 50% of $500,000, however, is a catastrophic event that wipes out a decade of disciplined effort and opportunity cost. At this stage, recovery time, not volatility, becomes the real risk. Therefore, the rules flip. Capital preservation takes priority. Asymmetry matters more than upside fantasies, and every decision must be evaluated through the lens of irreversible loss rather than short-term gains. This is where the concept of ecosystem investing comes into play. Unlike purchasing a broad market index, where you buy everything indiscriminately, including businesses you neither understand nor can evaluate, this approach deliberately leverages your domain expertise. Assume your field is technology and AI. Concentrating all capital into a single trendy company that could collapse tomorrow is not conviction. It's speculation. Instead, you allocate across the entire value chain. Chip manufacturers providing the hardware backbone, data center owners supplying critical infrastructure, model developers creating the software layer, and the energy companies that power the entire system. This is not diversification for show or driven by fear. It is a structured, strategic bet on a sector whose dynamics you genuinely understand. If one player stumbles, another segment often captures the growth, allowing the ecosystem itself to compound even as individual components rotate. But the most fundamental shift in thinking at this stage is the transition from hourly value to asset value. Until now, the primary focus was on increasing the price of your hour, becoming more skilled, more efficient, more valuable in the labor market. However, There are still only 24 hours in a day, and that ceiling is immutable. In the economy of the late 2000s, where automation and AI can rapidly commoditize even highly skilled linear work, relying exclusively on active income becomes increasingly fragile. At this point, you must stop being the sole engine driving your financial machine. Instead, you must step back and assume the role of its architect, designing systems, assets, and structures that generate value independently of your constant presence, allowing leverage, scalability, and resilience to replace raw effort. What does this look like in practice? It means assembling a deliberate, passive income toolkit that operates in parallel with your core stock portfolio, rather than competing with it. First, Real Estate 2.0. Not the outdated model of buying a single apartment for a modest 3 to 4% yield while inheriting the endless headaches of renovations, tenants, and maintenance. Instead, this approach leverages REITs, real estate investment trusts, or carefully selected real estate crowdfunding and lending platforms. Through them, you gain fractional ownership in high-quality commercial properties, logistics hubs, and income-producing infrastructure, while remaining completely hands-off. You capture cash flow and appreciation without ever touching a wrench, negotiating with contractors, or tying up your time in operational minutiae. Second, scalable digital assets. If you possess genuine expertise, the highest leverage move is to package it into a product with near-zero marginal cost of replication: an app, a software tool, a template library, a book, or a clearly defined methodology. The core effort happens once. Distribution does the rest. Once built, the asset can sell hundreds or thousands of times without a corresponding increase in your labor. The critical insight is this: people do not pay for raw information that is abundant and essentially free. They pay for structured systems that compress time, reduce uncertainty, and translate knowledge into executable steps. When your expertise is transformed into a repeatable framework, it stops being labor and starts functioning as an asset. Third, silent partnership. At this level of accumulated capital, you gain access to an entirely different class of opportunities: buying minority stakes in small, cash-flowing operating businesses as a passive investor. You are not managing day-to-day operations. You are supplying capital and strategic oversight while experienced operators run the business. The key principle here is the double attack strategy. Your index fund holdings, such as the S&P 500, remain optimized for long-term capital appreciation and compounding value over decades. In parallel, these private investments are designed to generate predictable cash flow in the present, gradually replacing your salary. One engine builds future wealth, the other buys freedom today. And the final, perhaps most critical, link in this chain is investing in relationships, also known as social capital. Understand a core reality of the modern economy. Raw information has effectively become a zero-cost commodity. Any motivated teenager equipped with an AI agent now has access to the same charts, data, and code that once required years of privileged exposure. Your competitive advantage is no longer defined by what you know, but by who trusts you and is willing to grant you access. We are transitioning from an era of information asymmetry to one of access asymmetry. The most profitable deals, the most reliable partnerships, and the deepest, most actionable market insights, often mislabeled as non-public information, are not discovered through search engines. They are transmitted through reputation, long-term credibility, handshakes, and closed, trust-based communities. Networking, finding mentors, and joining mastermind groups are no longer optional perks for extroverts. They are essential survival assets in today's economy. The lone wolf, no matter how talented, inevitably loses to the pack that moves together, shares insights, and leverages collective experience. A single $500 lunch with someone already where you aim to be in 5 years can compress what would have been half a decade of trial and error into actionable knowledge you can apply immediately. This is the principle of time compression, strategically borrowing someone else's experience, mistakes, and connections to accelerate your own trajectory. Just as you carefully design and balance your investment portfolio, you must consciously design your social and professional environment, surrounding yourself with people, structures, and networks that amplify your growth, shield you from unnecessary risk, and exponentially increase the odds of achieving your goals. Let's summarize. If you have executed the Scorched Earth protocol, eliminated high-interest debts, built a fully funded liquid shield, and launched automated investing, I sincerely congratulate you. You have accomplished what 90% of the population cannot even imagine doing. But make no mistake, this was only the entry ticket, the qualifier for the real race. The first million is earned through discipline, sacrifice, and consistent effort, the heavy lifting of financial foundations. The second million, and every subsequent one, is built differently, through careful scaling of capital, intelligent leverage, strategic ecosystem investing, and the cultivation of relationships and social capital that multiply opportunity. It is a shift from survival to acceleration, from simply executing to architecting your own financial future. The journey beyond the first milestone requires a different mindset, one that prioritizes asymmetry, optionality, and the deliberate design of both assets and networks. This journey from financial zero to full autonomy is not a sprint. It is a marathon of strategic evolution. It is a continuous process of learning, adaptation, and recalibration. Markets will shift, regulations and taxes will evolve, and technologies like AI will redefine the rules faster than any manual can anticipate. The only true constant, the foundation that will carry you through uncertainty, is your ability to consistently apply three core principles: disciplined risk management that protects what you have, systematic asset accumulation that grows your capital intelligently, and deliberate investing in relationships that unlock opportunities and knowledge unavailable through any algorithm or public source. Master these, and your financial trajectory becomes less about luck and more about design, resilience, and exponential growth. Now I want to hear your opinion. Which barrier feels more difficult to you at this stage? The psychological fear of managing large sums of money, the challenge of scaling, or the need to step far outside your comfort zone to intentionally build relationships and social capital? Write one word in the comments and explain why. Your perspective matters because we are all just beginning to navigate and understand the rules of this new economy. By sharing your experiences, we create a collective map of the challenges and breakthroughs ahead. I'll see you in the next video, where we will continue to explore these strategies and uncover the mindset shifts that turn opportunity into lasting wealth.